we're going to kind of just do an overview of the last two lives, and then we'll go into some of the more smaller changes happening and some of the more obscure things behind the scenes with the law that are going into effect. So, just to recap, no fault law was implemented in 1973 with the idea that it would address some of the growing litigation costs, stuff like that, which really didn't end up being true because attorneys were able to find loopholes within the law and find other reasons to sue outside of just the medical. And so, as you know, what ended up happening was through that unlimited personal injury protection, the cost just kept skyrocketing, going up year after year after year. And then fast forward, here we are at the implementation of this bill, we were the highest rates in America. So our lawmakers felt like they had to do something and to get bipartisan um, uh, votes. They had to make some concessions on each side. So what they came up with was, instead of just going completely away from no fault and scrapping it all together, they wanted to give people options. So you can stay unlimited if you want to, but you don't have to. You can go down to caps or waive it all together. So as you may remember from the other lives, your options with the new law coming out in July will be to continue to have unlimited medical coverage. You can select a cap of 500,000 or 250,000, no matter what your health insurance status, or you will be able to select, if you're on Medicaid, a cap of as low as 50,000, or as long as you have qualifying health coverage, meaning employer coverage, individual plan outside of Medicaid or Medicare, you'll be able to opt out of that personal injury protection altogether. So that's a recap of the webinar from the first day. And then also, some of the other things to note is that the bodily injury limits used to be 20,000, 40,000. That will be increasing to 50,000, 100,000, which kind of goes into yesterday's conversation. And then another thing from a coverage standpoint that's going to be changing is our mini tort law. So for those that don't know, Michigan does have a mini tort. Tort is the opposite of no fault. So in a no fault state, you are responsible for the damage to your vehicle, whether or not it's your fault. In a tort state, you actually sue the other party for damage caused to your vehicle. So what they did in Michigan is, instead of becoming a completely no fault state where you're always responsible for all of it, they wanted to at least make the other party pay your deductible. So a few years back, we raised it from 500 to 1,000 on the mini tort. This year in July, it's going to go from 1,000 to 3,000 that you'll be able to carry. So that should allow some people to raise their deductible up over the $1,000 mark and maybe carry a little higher deductible, knowing that they can recoup it from the other party through the mini tort laws. Another thing that we kind of touched on prior was the order of priority in medical claims. So before, there were 5 levels of the order of priority. It would be the victim, the spouse or household would then come into play. If the victim didn't have coverage, then after that, the owner of the vehicle, then the driver of the vehicle, then it would go to assigned claims if none of those were true. Under the new law, it's either going to be the victim, the spouse or household's coverage, or then it goes to assigned claims. So that's a little bit different. No longer will it be just blanket coverage for everybody. There will be some denials, some things going to the assigned claims. And if you're an out of state or not residing in Michigan, you get injured in the vehicle of say you have a cousin coming up from Florida, drives your vehicle, they get hurt. They have no coverage under our law moving forward. So that could cause some issues. And something we'll have to address. If you do have people coming in from out of state driving your vehicles, there could be an issue. So some other changes is you'll need to consider, if you have children that do not live in your household but use your vehicle, you'll want to talk to your agent about the best way to cover that. There is something called the non-owned auto policy that those people can purchase even though they don't have a vehicle. So that may be an option for them. and then as a last resort, there is the assigned claims plan, Michigan assigned claims plan. And then under that policy, those people would be limited to 250,000 in coverage on the medical. Another big thing to consider here is motorcyclists. So there's a big change in the way that we're going to cover the motorcyclists in Michigan. In the past, if it was involved with an auto, coverage always came from the auto of whatever that motorcyclist was involved in. Now, it's not that that isn't true, but it was unlimited medical for the motorcyclists. Now, what's going to happen is, let's say that motorcycle gets in an accident with another vehicle. Their medical is going to be covered by that motorcyclist, and it's now going to be limited to whatever, or not the motorcyclist, but the person driving the car. The motorcyclist's medical coverage would then be limited to whatever that car, the driver of that car, the owner of that car, their policy affords them. So if that person waived medical altogether, well, now that motorcyclist could have a problem, in which case that might go down to the assigned claims facility, or the assigned claims plan, I should say, and they're going to be limited to 250,000 in medical, which could be a really big deal. You know, typically when a motorcycle is involved in a car accident, those are pretty catastrophic injuries typically. So that's something to think about if you're a motorcyclist. Talk to your agent, make sure you're getting the right plan for yourself, but there still could be some issues. Let's talk about the assigned claims pool for a minute. What that is basically there's 6 carriers in the state of Michigan, Farm Bureau being one of them, that team up to basically pay the claims for what's called the Michigan assigned claims pool. So what they do is they're just adjudicating the claims basically. They're the ones paying out. It doesn't come off of the bottom line for the company. There's a separate fund set up for that. And so it just protects the loss ratios of those companies so that they don't have to raise rates on members, more or less. Another thing, this is kind of a big change. So typically, when you would come to me and ask me for auto insurance, if you didn't have prior insurance, I could not help you. I had to send you over to non-standard carriers, places like Progressive, National General, Bristol West, these types of places, and the rates were very high because you had no prior, and in Michigan it's a law that you carry insurance. Well, part of this new law is they're going to give you an 18-month, basically, hall pass, we'll call it, okay? So what that means is for 18 months, even if you have no prior insurance, we got to let you into the fold and let you get into the same rates as everybody else, even though you didn't have prior insurance. Now, that only goes through from July 1st, 2020 through January 1st, 2022. Then it goes back to the old way of doing things. So the whole idea behind that is to get all these people that are driving around without insurance into the mix and not penalizing them because they didn't have it before. So it's going to be really important that those people get insurance, stay on the plan, because again, it will be reverting back to the way it was before. And the idea is that when we have less uninsured drivers driving around, that will help drive down cost for everybody, right? Because ultimately we pay for those people with no insurance as consumers. Other changes are the insurers cannot use gender, marital status, education level, occupation, zip code, or FICO score in ratings. Now I can tell you that a lot of companies, they don't necessarily use it in rating. They might use it as those things as a discount factor. I'm told that they'll continue to be able to use it as a discount factor, just not in the way they develop the base rate. So, well, that still remains to be seen. All the carriers have filed for their rate changes for July 1st, but nothing's been approved yet. So stay tuned on that one. Another change with the new no-fault reform is family provided attendant care used to not be limited. Now it's going to be limited to 56 hours per week. Another change too is that let's say you do pick a cap of 250,000. If you want, the carrier is going to have a separate line item where you can purchase extended attendant care coverage. So that's a good thing, especially with the changes to the law. If you do decide to waive and go medical only, the biggest expense outside of that is going to be that attendant care. So interested to see how that all is going to play out and work, but that's another coverage change that's happening with the new law. Another change is typically, in the past we've had the MCCA fee. Some of you may or may not know what that is, and that pays for catastrophic claims. Every number that where that starts changes. Typically, it's been a little bit over 500,000. This year, it's going to be anything in excess of 580,000, and then the cost is currently $220 per year. If you select unlimited starting July 1st, that will drop to $100 per year per vehicle. If you go to a cap of 500 or 250,000, then it will be waived altogether. So the fee will only be assessed on policies that stay unlimited. So that's where we're going to see most of our savings moving forward would be right there, I'd imagine. Couple other things happening, and so it should really affect rates and help drive down the rates that we pay. Is they're going to start introducing some things to help control costs. Currently, under the current system, there is no fee schedule for the auto insurance company. So if the auto insurance company is primary and has to cover the claim primary, which is the case on currently on Medicare, Medicaid, any self-funded plans generally, like if you work for the big three, those plans work that way. We're primary, meaning we're covering the entirety of the claim. Typically what happens is the hospitals in those emergency situations, or even the providers on the follow-up care, are charging much higher numbers to the auto insurance carrier than they would to, say, Blue Cross Blue Shield. To give an example, an auto injury for an MRI at the hospital, they might charge the auto insurance carrier $3,000 for an MRI. That same MRI, they might only be charging Blue Cross Blue Shield $700. So ultimately, in the end, all that extra money that the auto insurance carrier is paying out, that's getting passed on to you as a consumer in the form of your premium. So that should help a lot. There's also some fraud things going into place that will hopefully help out with costs, but those are more long-term measures to kind of control costs and hopefully get things down. Essentially, what they're doing is they're starting next year, I believe in 2022, providers have to they're going to have a fee schedule at 225% of Medicare for the auto carriers, and then that will reduce over an 8-year period until we get down to 200% of Medicare. So those are the big things I want to talk about today. Again, please submit some questions if there's anything you're not sure of, you want some clarification on. I'd love to help you. If your agent isn't up on the law changes and not giving you a lot of great direction, feel free to reach out to me. You can get a hold of us at 586-221-1058. I got a Facebook page. You see the reviews. I think you'd be pretty happy with our agency and the way that we do things. We really do try to do a great job taking care of our clients and making sure they have the right coverage and know exactly what they're getting. So with that, we'd like to say thank you for tuning in. I think we might do one more tomorrow. We'll kind of have to see how it plays out. Try to come up with some more topics to discuss. Again, please feel free to send me some questions and I'll address them in the live tomorrow. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and stay safe out there.